audiences or viewers or consumers, they can tell when love and care has gone into something. I think people, like different breweries, having an approach to, like, they put the love and care into the beer that they're making, and then if they replicate that and put that into the beer labels or their cake badges and website experience and events and those kinds of things, the audience knows, they pick up on that, and they can really tell.
I'm Tim, the brand weaver, and this is Branding for Breweries, the podcast that helps you grow your brewery, build a better brand, and connect with more drinkers. Each week, I'm joined by the brightest minds in the beer world, sharing practical tips to help your brewery stand out and sell more beer. Let's get stuck in. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Branding for Breweries. We are here yet again. 'Tis I, Tim the Brand Weaver, talking to you, the wonderful members of the brewing public, about fantastic things to do with your brewery. Ideally, branding, marketing, sales, and all that good stuff in between. But that's enough of my jibber jabber. A massive shout out to Charles Fareham, who is one of the new show sponsor. And they are doing phenomenal things to help not only the show out, but of course they are superb at providing incredible hops, developing new ingredients as well. And the team have also told me that if you want to reach out and get in touch, they can help you with the story behind each of the hops. So if you're struggling to expand on the brand and the narrative behind the drinks and what goes into it, give them a shout, because they've got a massive archive of things that can help you out. Now, talking of things that can help you out, I've got a buddy of mine on the show today. It is the wonderful, talented, and awesome Matty McMullen. And he's going to be joining me today to help us unpack why, when you see some brewery brands, you go, good Lord, that thing's gorgeous. I'm salivating just at the sight of it. But how do they make it look so easy? Well, spoiler alert, it's not easy. And Matty's going to come and join us to help explain why. Matty, my man, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I am super funky fresh as always. Thank you, my buddy. And I'm somewhat cooler now as well, because it doesn't seem to be as baking hot today. But how are you getting on? You doing all right?
Yeah. I'm enjoying that it's cooling down now. So it's been a bit brutal. Even as an Australian, I'm like, I didn't move over to the UK for this. What's going on?
Yeah, it's a bit of a shock to the system, right? Dude, you've been on the show before, but just in case we got people listening in for the first time, they're going, hey, I want to hear what Maddie's got to say. Before we dive into this, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself, please, good sir, and what you do?
I go by the name Matty. Everyone calls me Matty, and I'm a designer and illustrator and creative partner for brands in the beer industry and, in the alcohol industry, actually. And I've been doing this for a while. I think it's like 10, 15 years or something, a long time. And love it. Big focus in the independent beer space and craft beer, and I'm really passionate about that. And up until recently, just been working on my own, and then now working alongside the team and the collective, and it's good. Exactly. We've got some work that'll be coming out soon, which will that'll be nice.
It's exciting. We are indeed colleagues, which is the thing. We work at the Brown Weaver Collective alongside some other people doing amazing things. But we don't need to blow that trumpet today. We need to blow the trumpet of those brands that make it look effortless, right? We were talking about this, discussing what we should be talking about on the podcast. And we came to this, like, Matty, help the listeners understand what work goes into creating a kick-ass brand that they don't normally see.
Yeah, there's I think it's like, and even for myself, I'm kind of surprised when I chat with different breweries and about there is quite a bit of work that goes in behind the scenes, and I think a good way to think about it is that audiences or viewers or consumers, they can tell when love and care has gone into something, and it's, I think people, like different breweries, having an approach to, like, they put the love and care into the beer that they're making, and then if they replicate that and put that into the beer labels or their cake badges and website experience and events and those kinds of things, the audience knows, they pick up on that, and they can really tell. And I think it's because you don't want to. I think it's really important to appreciate your audience, and to think about them and how they might feel about we think a lot about how it will feel to drink this awesome beer and what it tastes like and the experience of that, but also what it will feel like to see it, to see the brand itself and how that connects to them. And because we were having this initial conversation about what to discuss today, I did have a bit of a think to try and, because I'm working in this every single day, and I'm constantly meeting the different challenges that different clients have, for because everyone's completely unique. And I was trying to think of a way that's helpful of how to think about it, like to frame this. And what I landed on is there is, in the sort of what's happened in the industry, particularly with craft and how that took off. And we saw all this explosion of color and artwork and sort of anti-branding. And it was this thing of the unfamiliar. And it was almost like a rejection of what had been done previously. And because, people were tired of what they were familiar with, right? So we had the familiar and the unfamiliar pop up. And I think that's really two really good guardrails of what, where we're at even now. I think because craft beer and the branding has evolved to a certain point that the consumer and the audience are very aware of it now, and it's becoming more familiar to them. And so the challenge of, like, say, breaking into or standing out in that space has gotten more difficult. But I still think those two guardrails are still true. I think if you have some kind of awareness of, say, if you're starting out a new brand in the beer space, is to understand where you want to put yourself. Do you want to be, in the unfamiliar category and charge into that, or do you want to try and make something that is a bit more familiar? And that's what we're kind of seeing. Like behind me, we have Pillars, which that brand, it borrows a lot from what is familiar. It has a feeling of being a classic brand, but there's a modern urban interpretation of it. And also I have behind me, like, Two Flens is the other side of that. It is the antithesis. It is the unfamiliar, that it is trying to be not specifically a beer branding exercise. So if that's like a lot going on in there, but I just thought of a way to kind of, because there's various different things we'll probably talk about today, but it's just trying to frame it into this. And I think the breweries that do well are thinking about those kind of things, that, like, Danny at Big mentioned how difficult it is for them to maintain it, that it takes so much work and emphasis. And it was amazing because they have such a recognizable brand, but to hear Danny say how difficult it is to make those decisions and keep on that track. So yeah,
I think it's interesting how you put the guardrails, about, like, what people would, those kind of visual cues that are associated with craft and those that intentionally try and break it. If you go down the let's break the rules, the Two Flints approach, as you're talking about, there's got to be a risk that you break too many rules and then all of a sudden it's great design but doesn't work. Like, what are those potholes and things that people need to look out for if they are going to challenge, I suppose, the stereotypes in beer branding?
Yeah, I think it can be almost more difficult. Like if you like, it's great to want to break the mold, but then you are leaving behind those anchor points, like the cliches to draw on, the stereotypes that are recognizable, because when you're designing something, you're leaving little visual cues, little visual motifs for people to attach to. And so what by rejecting that, you're actually asking the viewer for more time and more consideration, which in this world is really difficult to convince any client to go down that pathway. but it can be really rewarding. It is difficult to do, and you are, by the nature of it, moving into territory which no one else has done, and so you can't know if it's going to work or not. But sometimes it does. I think this is when it comes back to the collection of everything. The not just the design, your strategy and your business vision. And if that is all, like, those three things working in harmony will carry a lot of it. And then it can generate, like, a consumer might look at it and go, this is madness. This doesn't make any sense. Or maybe it's like, I don't like the way that looks and all this stuff. But if then they're told by, say, a person behind the bar that the beer inside is amazing, like, and then that's one part you got. And then the next part is, and it's also they're doing something really interesting that no one's really tried before. So then you've got two parts, and then you can have people become more accepting and just go, okay, I will buy it, I will try it. And then now they've got a connection, like an emotional and psychological connection to something. So how do we unpack that and figure out whether or not this design worked? Well, we can't. Like, it's like, did it work or didn't it work? And then, because I would say after that point, they will never forget what that brand looked like, because they've already said something about it. They've already had a subjective opinion, whether they liked it or not. And then that's just how it works. Like, I look at beer brands all day, every day, and there are brands that I prefer and brands that I don't. I still drink from most of them, and it's just like, it's one part of the triangle of choice, that we have to try and to get people. And and there's, I don't know, it is a really tricky thing. I think it's like, I find, like, say, working with Two Flames, I was working on something this morning, and so difficult to nail down because the brand is so simple, but there needs to be something in it that makes it feel like it's not just simple. And especially when there's some special things coming up, and trying to make it look like it's a bit special, but also still looks like the brand. And so there's a lot of ideation and working through it, and because I want people to be happy with it. I want people to like it, and so yeah. I hope I've answered that. I kind of went around, but
we knew coming into this conversation we were going to spiral down holes. Don't you worry. I think it's interesting where you talk about that. If you are coming out with something which is a challenging visual, there's a lot to be said for when marketing supports something like that, especially if it's the launch of a new brand. You use the example of over the bar person goes, this is a great drink, right? And then you're like, oh, wicked, great beer, looks different, I'm going to remember it. But in place of the person behind the bar, then marketing has to go out and almost educate people and give them the confidence to go, okay, this looks a little bit weird, you're not used to it, but trust me, it's definitely worth the try.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we've got these two routes, the bold, daring, a little bit different, or the more traditional cues. Is it possible for a brewery to rebrand from a traditional cue into bold and daring, or do you think that territory is reserved for new breweries coming into the space?
No, I think and we've seen it with a few breweries. Although they tend to make incremental steps and not a massive leap, because it's it is obviously a big business decision, and we've seen these global brands do that and famously not get it right. But yeah, I think it is okay to do that. I think it is, again, it comes down to respect your audience, and like, understand them, and don't, like, you want the respect from your audience, and you need to give them the respect too. And I think you want to enhance things, and it's not about you. Like, like, I try to think as well, me, like, I have my own taste and things I like and I dislike, but I have to take my ego out of this, and because I'm doing it for the fans, I'm doing it for the people who love the brand, and it's not about me. I do like to make things that I really like, but But it's, yeah, and I think that's like, we can do that, but you know, it's hard to imagine, say, a brand like Fuller's, like London Pride, going like, you know, because I don't think anyone wants that. And I think it's when it's like, you need to understand that, is it just a business tactic, like, which I would disagree with, you know, I go, or is it, you know, for the love of the business, we're gonna amplify this and evolve it and grow it, and you know, and take what you've loved and give it everything we've got to make it, you know, this beautiful world. And yeah, so that would be my recommendation.
So let's talk a little bit about collaborations between, you know, creative partners and breweries for a bit. So say, you know, I've had it, you've probably had it. Oh, you know, what do you want? You know, what do you want to try and achieve this? Oh, it just needs to look cool. It needs to stand out. But realistically, you know, you as a creative partner, what do you want to get from a brewery that might not necessarily appear on a standard brief?
Yeah, I think, well, perhaps you wouldn't initially think of this, but is to actually get to know the people at the brewery and how they work and who they are, and what they feel about the brewery and about the business, like what they love about it, what they don't love about it. And because I think it's really important to develop, like, that helps to develop trust between, you know, yourself and a creative partner or a designer that you're working with. And then from that point, you know, because it is to a big extent, you know, like, I can't really put the burden on the brewery too much, particularly if they don't have a marketing department. They don't know what to provide. I need to ask for it. You know, a designer, a creative needs to ask for it. And you get better answers from someone who you've started to form a relationship with, and you know, you've developed trust. And so if I know how you're feeling about things, and that your dreams and your goals, and you know, what you got into this business for, and to start with, and then you know that same thing about me, you know, like, I love this industry, I'm really passionate about it, and then we can then have a conversation about what it is that's really the problem, you know, for your business, and have an honest conversation. Because it is, you know, get that all the time. I really want this to stand out, or we need to make this pop, or you know, I need to clean this up to make it look more professional. I'm worried about that. And just go, yeah, that's cool. Like, yeah, so, but let's talk about, and I can help with that. That's fine. You know, those are things we can easily solve, but what else is going on? You know, is there a reason why you haven't done that in the past? You know, what has held you back? And that's, try to get to the root of that so you can actually help. And, you know, and, it's surprising, like, people perhaps don't realize that creatives and designers are professional problem solvers. That's the job, you know. And we don't just make pretty pictures. We're designing the worlds that we live in. You know, it's like, you know, you got a phone in your hand, someone designed that. You know, you're looking at everything, your clothes, like all this stuff. You know, we're just trying to, you know, make awesome stuff, and you know, help people and get inspired and inspire people. Yeah.
Just so happens that we love it as well most of the time, which is super helpful. So would you say, like, would you prefer as a creative to get a very slim brief, but then the opportunity just to sit and talk with the client, versus, like, you know, a 5-8 page document which outlines specifics, what they believe they need?
Yeah, because I have the reaction of, if I get a 5-page brief, it tells me instantly you have no idea what's going on, and you're trying to figure it out, like, you're trying to cover every base, but you need guidance. And but if you know, I have clients now send me a single sentence, you know, and that's all I need. I go, yep, cool, I understand, I know. And you know, like, and that's with, like, because I have context, because I'm, you know, I think the benefit of if you work with a designer, you have a relationship with them, you understand and trust them, they know your brand in and out, and they'll go to bat for you. And then when you're super busy and you can just go, oh, we really need this. There's some like the World Cup stuff. We really need this done ASAP. Could you just make something? Don't even get all the details. I'm like, I'm on it. I'll sort it out. And, I'll Google the details of when the game's on, and just, I'll throw it together and it's done, and because it's, I think that's the way I like to prefer. I know it's very counter to a lot of, working in agencies and account management and stuff like that. And there is a place and a need for that. I just think, it's, I don't know. I think trying to, marketing people watching this are going, this guy is insane for saying that. But I totally understand that. But it's great when you can have such a close relationship with a client, and just the brief can be so minuscule, or just like pick up the phone and just go, oh, hey, a text message, do you have time to chat about this? Yes. Okay, then talk about it. But if you haven't worked with a designer before, the thing is to ask the designer and be very honest with them and say, look, I think I need this, and here's all the stuff that I have, like my logo assets and all this stuff. And then say, what do you think? And then, do you have questions for me? Because the designer should come with the questions, and then, be open and honest, and especially like if you've got tight budget, just tell your designer, like tell them that. And because as soon as you semi-brief or loosely brief a creative person, they're going to start thinking about that design, and they're going to have all these crazy ideas. But then you say, oh, my budget is this, and they go, oh, okay, all right, I can still figure something out. But now they've had all this, So I think, and if you've got tight budget, again, designers are the problem solvers. Let them, if they can figure it out with that money, great. If they can't, then straight away, it's you're not wasting people's time, and you can try to,
Yo, I just want to take a second out of Branding for Breweries to make you aware of something. For those of you who don't know, outside of hosting Branding for Breweries, writing the book Branding for Breweries, I also provide independent breweries with hands-on support with their branding, design, and marketing. In fact, it's even better than that, because it's not just me, it's a whole bunch of awesome independent brewery folks who are dedicated to doing the very best for each and every independent brewery. The team have worked with some incredible breweries like Northern Monk, Osset, Brains, Pillars, all over the globe, and gaining results like doubling revenue, winning Rebrand of the Year, even gaining over 7 million views on the TikTok channel. So if you're looking to level up your brewery's branding and marketing this year, drop us a message over at www.thebrandweavercollective.com, and a member of the team will get back to you and we can have a chat. Now, back to the show.
It's an interesting one, because you highlight that it's a very quick way to filter through finding the right creative partner for you. If you actually, and when I say you, a brewery owner, someone within the brewery comes to a creative going, I've got these problems, how do we go about fixing them? You're going to get one of two responses. You're going to get someone who goes, right, let's jump on a call, let's have a chat, let's work it through, and I'm going to come back with ideas for you. Or you're going to have someone going, I need a brief. And that becomes more transactional. Yeah. And for a lot of these breweries, I do it, you do it, you've just mentioned it, that you get to those partnerships because it is the WhatsApp messages, it's the collaborations, it's the back and forths. But it must be such a terrifying leap of faith for someone who hasn't done it before. Like, it's the tricky thing of going, how do you build someone's confidence in the creative solutions of someone they've not used before? How do you give them confidence in that kind of scenario?
Yeah, I think if there is ever a question of that, and depending on who it is, and I've done like I'll just make a piece of work for them, and like that's, you know, whether it's to be used or not, if like they want to like, and sort of not briefed or anything, like we've found a problem, and you know, and I just, because you know I'm obsessed with doing this stuff, so I just do it in my free time and go, okay. And it's almost like a pitch. I know it's free pitching, but I'm just making a smallish design. I think this is a solution to this, and you know, and present it and discuss it, and then see what happens. Like you might be completely off the mark, and but it also has created a conversation. You've started a relationship that, and it's told the client like you actually give a shit about their brand because you've spent your own time, and it's, you know, typically it doesn't take that much time. I wouldn't recommend, you know, and this isn't for doing it for exposure. This is to do it to try to win a piece of work that you didn't have, you know, and to win a client you don't have a relationship with. But it's great to, you know, to present them with yourself and, you know, through their lens and how you interpret them. And because it's also, you know, we have a portfolio, and, you know, that's the classic way. I got the website, and, you know, you can see my previous work and all this, but, you know, not everyone can imagine how, you know, your kind of work or my kind of work will translate into their brand. And so sometimes you just got to show them, and it's fun. You know, I loved, you know, like getting different brands and going, oh, well, if I was in charge, what would I do? And just playing around. I actually do it quite a bit, like in just playing around, making my own versions of people's breweries. And yeah, so.
Love it. What about the pushback side of things, right? You know, I know I've got into relationships with clients where you get to that point where you're like, I'm comfortable enough to go, I don't know if that's the right thing. Like, do you find yourself in that position sometimes where they come to you with something, but actually you're okay to challenge it?
Yeah. I think again, that's you know, it comes back to that trust in the relationship between the two. But it's super important to, you know, if you you know, you don't think something is right, making a bad call or a bad decision here. You know, a tactic I use, which is I use this all the time. I say, right, let's not die wondering. And so I will make the design as they want, and then I'll make my version. And or even if I'm making a version and I'm not sure, you know, I'm like, oh, this idea is kind of wild, I'm not really sure about it, I will still make it. And then we get to look at it and see it. And so we don't need to try to imagine, oh, is that a good idea to you know, proceed down that direction or not? We will know. We will find out. And a lot of the time, you just won't know until you actually make it. And like I've done stuff with pillars, like where we just didn't know if this would work or not. And then we put it together, we get labels printed, mock it up, have a look at it and go, oh no, this is not right. Like this just doesn't feel right. But if we just go, you know, I remember saying like, I think it's off brand to do this, but we still needed to try it, you know. And it wasn't until we all saw it and we all went, no, we can't do this, you know. And it's, so yeah, I think that's like, also as a, you know, to other designers out there, it's like, it's really important to don't be lazy and, you know, and assume that a client can see what's in your own mind, and just, you know, you need to actually make it for them, and then get consensus that this was a bad, you know, or, you know, it's just, this is about being creative. Like you make mistakes. That's the whole thing. You keep making more and more mistakes until it works. And it's like magic. And it's like, oh, this is all figured out now. And you can't do that unless you've made those mistakes. You can't. So.
And I'd imagine from a brewery's perspective, that is a far better way to develop a better relationship, instead of like a creative turn around and go, no, that's not going to work, idiot. Yeah. Like you don't actually let them make an informed choice, and they go. And you're coming to them with another solution as well. It's like, okay, so this is what you wanted to see, but you know, maybe not great. I did this as well. What do you think of this? And sometimes they may still go back on the other one, I suppose, but it is their baby at the end of the day.
Yeah. And you can't be, as a designer, emotionally attached. Like, it's not like I never get offended, like, oh, like this is just like, I think when we worked on stuff like together and I've gone, oh, so you mean I need to go and design more things? Like, hell yeah. Like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, all right, I'll try to come up with some more ideas and try to figure stuff out. So, obviously having millions of rounds of changes is quite annoying. And that I think comes down to management and understanding structure and communication with the client, consolidate all of your feedback into one, share it all at once. And then so we can all go through that and there's no confusion and version control of different iterations and stuff like this, which is all, professional handling that your designer should, take care of that for you. Yeah.
So let's talk about the benefit of developing a relationship with a creative partners, whatever you want to call them, versus that kind of like ad hoc, oh, I'm going to use these guys for that thing. And I'm a bit bored of that. So I'm now going to go over here. Like, what's the trade-off? What do you get from one that you don't get from the other?
Yeah, I think the benefits of, say, the ad hoc method is that you can tap specific talent and for example, like illustrators and artists who have a very particular style, and you can tap into them and it's awesome, and like, we should definitely we need more artists in the world, not less. And so I love that, and I think that's great. What you need to be mindful of is that the brand itself is like this one consistent line, and it sort of goes through a tunnel and over a bridge, and it's all got to remain on the same same trajectory. So applying in different talent needs to fit within that, and it needs to be curated. And it's important to have, I think that's why, you have a brand guardian or a creative, like a creative person who's attached to a particular brand. A brand guardian is someone who is within the company, who has enough, context and understanding and history within the business to know what the brand means and what is right and what's wrong. And they also have the power to make decisions. And so I think that's really important to appoint one or two people within the organization for that. And one of them may be the creative that you work with. And just, I think, and then, you can make decisions about, this piece of work from such a different company or an illustrator or an artist, and trying to make sure that it actually is going to benefit the brand and not harm it in the long run, and is, because it's really exciting to do collaborations with other, designers and artists, because they bring fresh perspective and fresh ideas. And but yeah, it needs to be curated, and because we have, I think you've talked about on the show, there's like full brand worlds now. It's not just the typical touch points of a can or bottle label and a keg badge. We have, branded environments and bars and experiential, things and competitions and online stuff, video, and there's going to be a lot of different creative execution needed for that. And, it's, yeah.
I think, I've been pondering about different breweries that will go off and use different illustrators or 3D modelers and things like that. The one that immediately springs to mind is Northern Monk, because they have a plethora of talent that they bring in, from crazy, old school Americana tattoo ideas to 3D modeling, sci-fi stuff. But you're right, they always have it locked in. It's almost like a framework that sits around the design. There's consistency, which kind of put the guardrails, and then a creative can come in and work with it. It's not like Northern Monk goes out and gets a completely different can design every time. You look at the structure and composition, and they remain the same. And so is that what you mean when you talk about you have this brand guardian, because it keeps it on lock, but you still got enough to vary it up as well?
Yeah, I think the brand guardian, I think Northern Monk's a really good example, because they have, with the patrons projects, which is a lot of that artwork, the full art cans, and that is structured as that's the series of beer that comes out. And there were always, really crazy stuff like crazy hops or fruited and all this, and stouts. But then they still have their core range, and they still have their consistent range of beers, and they have other series as well. But they're captured within a series, or we have Patrons Project, which is that series, and it all fits and works neatly into this sort of structure that which is, I guess, to go back, is like the familiar and unfamiliar. The familiar is the core range that we see, the faith and the heathen, and then the unfamiliar being like, okay, well, this is our opportunity to be super creative in the brewery and make something really wild, and then on the outside of that also have something really crazy and cool. And that is being the brand guardian is actually the person who's sat back and seen that as the strategy and understands that is the way that we're doing this. And so it's and that's, it kind of clues you into the behind the scenes. Like, there is thinking into this. It isn't we should just have a really cool full art label with an artist I love. It is actually a structure of how the product strategy is put together, and how that links into the brand and helps to sell a story. Patrons Project is a subscription project, so it goes back into the sales story, and it's it's an excellent strategy. I think it's been hugely successful for them. So
a beautiful full circle moment there where we went back to what we started. It's almost like we know what we're talking about, dude.
Yeah.
But I don't want to let you get away, because you said brand world, which is completely right. And a lot of the times when we think about creatives and design, we'll go, it's a can, it's a clip, it's a lens, it's a bottle. But let's spend a couple of minutes indulging in touch points and just broadening that idea, because it's all well and good working with a creative and going, we need a new can design, but actually there's a lot more to consider, right? What are these other touch points that people need to be thinking about to deliver that wonderful, fully fleshed out experience?
I think, like, if you can think about from brewery to hand, from being brewed to drinking it from your own hand, where are they drinking it? Are they at home? Or how did they get it home? Is it delivered in a crate? What does the crate look like? How did they order it? So we've already covered, you've got your beer crate as a touch point. Did they order it from, the brewery's web shop, which is another touch point? Then also the partners and like other online beer distributors. What are you sending them? When you send something to Fuss Beer, the beer description, what have they got? Social media is also a huge touch point, which we kind of just overlook. And then really cool stuff, obviously, like merch, you have that, and then trying to be more interesting and coming up with really unique ideas and things that are not, like, everyone kind of knows the orange kegs for pillars. Like, that's, now I'm sure plenty of breweries are kicking themselves wishing they could do that, but that's now Pillars' thing. Like, but try to come up with something that is a really unique touch point. I don't know, it could be anything. And I wanted to do cushions for Two Flints and put the logo on there, but it was two cheeks, and we haven't done that yet, but I still want to do it. I'm saying it on here, so now it puts the pressure on that we can actually do it, because I think it'd be funny, because it's too, we go to tap rooms, we sit on wooden chairs and benches, and let's make this experience a little more enjoyable, and just have some cushions for your cheeks.
You're right. So that, again, it comes to that thinking behind it. It is if we break this down step by step, there are all these normal elements that your drinker will interact with alongside that glass or that can or whatever it is. how can you take that beautiful brand that you've created and just turn it into something which is more than the normal beer mat, the normal cushion that you're going to sit on, the umbrella that you sit underneath, just to make it more immersive, I suppose, in many ways.
Yeah. It's cool. I remember like in the early days of craft, and I think it kind of came from the guys over in the States and just the ridiculous glassware that beers were being poured into. Like they always like a vase, and just like wild things, because the beers are, wild. And I was thinking about that. Like obviously they like would find one glass and they've just found this, custom one-off. And I really love that. And I saw that, like I think it was Daya had like the handmade clay Stein like tankard things, and with the crocodile. And there's opportunity to do, and it just makes sense because, say, with Daya, the brand is so artistic and handcrafted, and then it makes sense to do a handcrafted like tankard, to collaborate with an artist who will hand make that. And it's just like, that's where I like, it's so cool. It's so cool.
I suppose you're going to get a lot of people listening to this going, yeah, it's all well and good doing these like handcrafted tankards or, cushions or whatever it is. But there's going to be loads of breweries out there going, I don't have the budget for that.
Yeah.
Like, what would your advice be to those breweries who want to look into the idea of collaborating with someone, but really getting the value right, where they go, actually, this is working really well, and we don't have hundreds and thousands of pounds to splurge on it?
Yeah, I think like there's, especially smaller businesses, you've got a tighter budget, and all the budget you're using, you're trying to get the most out of. And I think like breweries forget that there are lots of other small businesses around them who are also thinking the same thing. And I think it, as an idea, right, is try to partner up with other companies in your area local to you that complement beer, or you as a beer complement them, and have arrangements of, like, if I'm sending out beer crates and you guys make pretzels, you're a local small pretzel company, little brand no one really knows, would you let us like throw in a pack or two into each crate so that our customers love us, and then they get to meet your brand, and then we'll use that to say, like, we're talking about your brand. And that is just through cost of, collaboration. Like, it's not doing a giant ad campaign and then, not being set up to take advantage of that. It's going grassroots and, and just trying to be a little more savvy with, the kind of money. And it's, I don't know, short of just rattling off ideas people write down.
We'll do that on another show, dude. I'm sure there is a lot. There's two topics there, isn't there? There's the surprise and delight, actually. Oh, I've received my beer, and oh, look, there's this little bit extra in there. But the power of community, and especially if that is an aspect for your brand, you are growing an audience in different areas that you may not have done before anyway, but there is some kind of natural association. And you see a load of brands, not just breweries, do that really successfully, where they integrate into other fields of interest which are adjacent to what they're offering. And could be cheaper than you reckon. The final question, Matty, because I realize that we've been rapping for a long time, is it right for a brewery to expect like incredible things off the bat from a creative partnership, or does it take a bit of time to kind of bed in and really see the true outcome from it? Because everyone talks about ROI. What's the ROI on working with a brand strategist or a creative? From your perspective, how does it work, and what does that kind of growth look like?
I think, the best results you can get from a creative, how to get the best out of them is to give them time. And I think so in that, I think intentionally take your time and to be cautious and don't rush into decisions, because this is a big thing. If you are literally creating your brand, I'm not saying like take months and months and months, but don't just rush it, and have the object in mind to I just want to have it ready to go. I think, about forming that relationship with your designer so that they can find the right answer for you. And that, going back to the don't die wondering, that you've explored enough so that where you're at, where you've come to is the right way, and that's, I think, what's really, at the heart of it. If it's really difficult to, like, I find it, so difficult to try and hit the mark first try. Like it's so hard, and I don't expect it of, because also we have to collaborate together. The client's going to come at it from a perspective that I would never have thought of, and perhaps they'll say something which they meant something else, but I interpret it a certain way, but we still get there, and you just don't know what's going to happen. It's been that's kind of incredible, and I think give it enough for that to happen. And I think it's the same with making the beer. You wouldn't rush that. You're not going to rush it. Like, this is your whole business. If you stuff that up, if your first beer that goes out is not perfect because you rushed, and so it's you want to be as dialed as possible by the time you launch, and to get that, you've got to give it the consideration and the time, the period of collaboration, and and get people involved, get feedback, and talk to people, go down to your pub or the places you want to sell it, show them, ask them, don't get offended when people say they hate it. Like, it's okay, and I have that all the time. The beer industry is very uncompromising, and they don't care. They will tell you how they feel. So it's and that's why it's awesome.
I agree, especially around the, you can't expect magic in the first round. That essence of collaboration and challenge. I think back to all of my projects when I've been developing brands, and whilst it would be amazing to go, nailed it first time, saved a lot of time. It's the second, it's the third round revision where you're like, yes, it ticks, everything sings. But your analogy or the comparison, like, you don't rush your brewing project. So treat your creative like you treat your beer. Give it time, consideration, and you're going to get the best results from it. Matty, it's always a pleasure having you on the show, man. I know it's not your first time, and it won't be your last either. But for people who maybe want to check out your work, see what you're getting up to, where are we going to send them?
Yeah, so my website is madebymatty.com. And I think, and then from there you can go to Instagram and all that stuff, and LinkedIn, and so
good stuff. Made by Matty, and indeed check out what we're doing as the collective, because there's new stuff coming out soon, people.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matty. Always a pleasure. Everyone who's tuned in today, even the people who gave us a shout out from Argentina on Instagram, that's wicked. Thank you for tuning in. You all rock, and we'll catch you again soon on Branding for Breweries, people. Rock on.
That's a wrap on this week's episode of Branding for Breweries. If you got something great from it, hit follow, like, and subscribe on your favorite streaming app. Or even better, leave a review, share it with your brewery pals, or get in touch, because I want to chat to you. Rock on!